Very importantly, have all the voting reps from the groups given in their voting slips. Now's the time to do it. There are easy read minutes available on the table if you come in at reception. If you would like a copy of those, then that's where they are. I'd like to welcome you all here today, to our guests, to our members and volunteers, especially those joining us for the first time today. It's really lovely that you've turned out this morning. Not a very good morning to start off with, so it's lovely to see you all here, and thank you for coming. The other bits of housekeeping: we don't have a fire drill expected, but should the bells start ringing, you either exit from here to the car park through the door that you came in, or there are doors on the left-hand side of you, both ends of the hall. They go out to a pathway, and we should go around and assemble in the car park. Please don't leave the site without giving your name in, or else someone will have to come back in and look for you should the place burn down. Let's hope it doesn't. Toilets, if you haven't yet found them, there is a map actually in the back of your packs of exactly where you might be able to find the loos. So they're there. There is one accessible toilet which you can most easily get to by going out of the door that you came into from the reception and tracing the corridor round to the end. If you have your mobiles on, do you think you could please turn them off or put them on silent? With regard to communication cards, could I just highlight that they're not voting cards. The voting cards for the reps are yellow cards. You can ignore the A on it. It's just a yellow card. If you would like to raise a point, or you want any questions answered, could you just sort of raise your hand? And if I don't see you, can you give us a shout, please? After the morning, we'll have lunch in the small hall, which is behind you. There's a long table set out in the small hall, and we'll be serving from both sides of that table. So we don't need to just form one queue, go both sides. Water and drinks at the back, if you would like them during the morning. So I'd like now to ask for the people on the table here to introduce themselves, and then we'll go around and see who else is here from the membership. So could I pass it to you first, Sean?
Hello, I'm Sean Hobbs, the Vice Chair. Hello, good morning, I'm Sean Briscoe, the Trustee. Michael E. Dent, Trustee. Les Bowler, Trustee.
I'm George Saunders, Trustee.
Mark Harrison, Chief Executive.
Catherine Mayer, Trustee.
Rick Kaufman, Trustee. Penny Holden, Trustee.
Thanks very much. So we've got more or less a full board here. We've got just Kate Wyatt, who's not able to be with us today, and Alan McKim, who's also not able to be with us today. So I'd now like to ask you, please, if you could, we'll pass the mic round. Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's really interesting to hear that there's so many people from so many different groups here. I would just say that we're expecting our guest Jenny Morris to arrive sometime during the session this morning, hopefully before her part of it. She will be joining us at some point. Right, we're now going to start the business part of the AGM. Apologies from the trustees, as I have mentioned, including Pat Crawford, Alan Kim and Kate Wyatt. The outline of the minutes of the last meeting, this was the meeting that we held on the 8th of October 2011 down at Poringland. We'll go just very briefly through these minutes. We talked about campaigning hard against the cuts to the services. We looked at and mentioned our activities from 2012 to 2015, and that the board had been working on a plan for those. Mark highlighted that it was the 15th year celebration of the Unified Voice of Disabled People in Norfolk. And we also mentioned our support of the Suffolk Coalition of Disabled People that we've been supporting to get going, and they're doing very well. Mark spoke about the Hardest Hit campaign, and there will be several mentions of that later on, I'm sure. Including the successful protest that was held in London. Now today we managed to clash with the TUC meeting in London, which is very unfortunate really, and some of our members will actually be there today, but we did send our best wishes to them and bon voyage for the demonstration today from us. Mark was talking about the independent living groups playing a bigger part in what we do, and that certainly has worked through this year. We mentioned also the Visibility Project, which has been running to support people develop their skills. I think then that was down then to the financial report, and then the election of trustees. We talked a little about the DPOs going around in the country, and we had in the afternoon the Sing Your Heart Out session, which was very well supported. And then finally, but not least, the Youth Forum presented their film to celebrate the 15th anniversary. Could I have a proposal, please, that the minutes are a true record of last year's meeting? Proposal, please? Yes. Janet Brandish and Linda? Yes. Danny, thank you very much. Now, just to highlight that the voting members actually approved these minutes, could you please vote for the approval of the minutes? Any more voting for? Can I count again? For. Any against? Any abstentions? Right, we've passed the minutes of the last meeting then, thank you very much. Any matters arising are actually going to be covered in the agenda as we go through this morning, so we'll catch up with those when we get there. So I'll sign those minutes as a true record. We now come to the Chair's report for April 2011 to March 2012, being a little bit more up to date. You should have your printed annual reports, the glossary reports. You may like to look through. The headline really of this report is that the challenge goes on. We had a difficult year before, and the year that's just gone has been similarly difficult. Our experience is that when disabled people are challenged, they develop their skills to respond to whatever difficulties come along. It's been that sort of year, and I can't really describe it as anything else, but there is light on the horizon, and we're getting there. But looking back now onto the year that we've reported to ready for the Charity Commission, we looked at our campaigning and our influencing change. The Hardest Hit campaign was, of course, one of the biggest things that we worked on. We also looked at working with the United Kingdom Disabled People's Council on the Arts Project, which was hugely successful. We had the prepared murals displayed in the Chapelfield Gardens, and it's coming back to Norwich, as I'm sure many of you will be aware, with the exhibition opening on the 1st of November at the Forum, and then is remaining there for another 4 or 5 days up to the 6th of November. Communities Shaping the Health Services. We've got 2 groups in Norwich and West Norfolk working with commissioners to establish ways of working that will embed a partnership approach to bringing public views into commissioning. We have the Hate Crime Project, which Hazel has been leading. Hazel's over in the corner, being very, very quiet, and she didn't get caught when we went round, absolutely. And she's sitting next to Penny, who was also very quiet when we went round, but I'm not going to let you get away with it. They've been working really very hard this year. But it's never happened before, no. As we went round, one or two people mentioned co-production. This is a really key part of what we're doing. We have a strong relationship with Norfolk County Council, and we're helping them organise how to get the views of people into commissioning and getting our views heard and taken notice of. We signed up with the Making It Real campaign to move towards personalised services. And of course, the Youth Forum has been really working very well, and they put together their visibility event. They've taken awareness to young people, including visits to schools. Another part of what we do, of course, is our support through Independent Living Norfolk and Suffolk Independent Living, aiming to help people to increase or maintain their independence and have as much choice and control over their support arrangements as possible. There's a lot of figures in the full report, but what I'd like to just highlight is that between the two of them, Independent Living Norfolk and Suffolk Independent Living, there's nearly 4,000 people taking control of their life choices across Norfolk and Suffolk, and that's a huge number. It's going to increase considerably in the future, but 4,000 people is some target. It's very well done. I've mentioned already our support of the Suffolk Coalition of Disabled People, and also, of course, our peer support's another main thread of the way we work, and we'll be mentioning the independent living groups a little bit later on. We now have 5 in Norfolk, and there's also groups in Suffolk, in Ipswich, Bury St Edmunds, Lowestoft and Sudbury. Our advice and advocacy service, as I'm sure that many of you are very well aware of, Disability Rights Norfolk took nearly 18,000 calls in and out last year, and 395 people were supported with appeals representations with a 62% success rate. Now this really means that there is 1 successful appeal for every working day of last year. So that tells you something about the number of people who are being turned down and the number of people who are then being reallocated their support on appeal. It's a very, very important thread of what we do. The Norfolk Mental Health Advocacy Service supported nearly 1,500 people. Again, that's 6 new cases a day. Appropriate Adult Service, who support vulnerable people in police custody, went out on over 2,000 occasions last year. and it is a national example of good practice around appropriate adult services throughout the country. Our independent living advocacy, provided from our own resources, we don't get any grants at all for this. So this is the amount of money that we can save and reallocate within the organisation. They were of course extremely busy too. I'm going to leave the financial review to Sarah Carter, who will be mentioning this later on. And that really is the main thrust of what we've been doing this year, apart from our huge amount of work that we've been doing to get ourselves in the right sort of place to be successful in our new environment it's a competitive environment regarding how we fund the services that we want to be able to produce. So over the next few months, most of the contracts that we have that refer to the sort of services that I've just mentioned are going to be renewed. And we have to work differently in the future, or else it's just not going to work for us. There's less money to do more work, and we have to make substantial changes to the way that we have worked in the past in order to be able to do it. So the trustees and the staff have worked extremely hard this year to look at different approaches that we could take to succeeding and carrying on in things that are fundamentally important to us. We looked at the services that we provide and also our what we might call voice activity. This is around campaigning, it's around making sure that we hear the voice of disabled people and people facing disabling barriers in Norfolk, and that those views feed into what we do and how we try to work when we get people working in co-production, in consultations. It goes through all of our activities. The plan we are thinking of putting forward is that we join up both the service and the voice activity into an integrated front, so that people come to our organisation and they get whatever service it is they need, rather than having to go to different divisions of our organisation. We call the voice activity the lived experience. This is about making sure that we hear this. We can create wider social change when we have the evidence behind us for what we want to do. So we can work in community projects and on campaign activities with the evidence, with the cases, histories, with your voice behind us all. This will help us continually improve our service activities. We talk to people who are using them, and we go to all parts of the county to find those views. If the plan works, we intend to develop a much more user-friendly website, which holds a lot more information about the sort of things that people ask us information about. There'll be self-help toolkits and volunteer peer advisors that will be there, offering the sort of information that we have to give currently through staff on the phone. So people can come to our website and may not even have to make a call to us, but they will have found the information they need on our website. And clearly, if that information isn't relevant, or they've got another sort of query that they want to talk through, then the telephone service will still be there. Now later on this afternoon we'll be having a workshop about this, so we can explore your ideas on this a bit more. We also did a lot of work on our identity. We know from listening to the sort of people that we are able to contact that not everybody associates with the term disabled person. And this can result in still more people who face disabling barriers not coming to our organisation to be part of our activities or to benefit from our services. We had, as many of you will have taken part in, a survey, and that came up with a name that nobody was really very happy with. So we rejected that name, and then asked as many people as we could get in contact with to offer their own suggestions. And this came up with a list of over 20, which was eventually honed down to 3. And the board decided among them that of these 3, the name Equal Lives will be how we are known in the future. And I hope that is now up on board. It was a very difficult decision to do this. The full name of the Norfolk Coalition of Disabled People has not disappeared. It will be in the small print, it's on our contracts, it's still our legal name. But we will be known as Equal Lives in the future. And you'll find that branding, as it were, appearing throughout the next year. It will gradually appear. And now, it's not terribly clear on this PowerPoint, and perhaps not from the back of the hall, so I'd like to just describe it. Equal Lives is in plain clear lettering in dark blue that picks up the colour, previous colour of the NCODP. There are 3 bird shapes flying into the distance on just before the E of Equal Lives, and this picks up the independent living symbol that we've had previously. The independent living indicates freedom, and that is really what we're about, freedom and equality. And that is in pale maroon, which also picks up the previous colours. The strapline underneath Equal Lives reads, in pale maroon, free from disabling barriers, which takes us straight back to the fundamental ideas of the coalition, but it makes it much clearer to people who are approaching our organisation exactly what it is we're about, what they might be able to support within our organisation, and what they might be able to get from our organisation. So you'll be seeing Equal Lives appearing and being talked about throughout the year. On the back of the hall, you'll see how the various changes have moved in the way that NCODP has appeared over, well, since the last 15 years, really. There was a great deal of discussion about this. The loss of the word coalition within our title. But I would want to say to you that coalition is more than a word. It's important that we understand it as a movement that has to be maintained and developed. It's more about what we do and how we do it. It's a fundamental belief in people who experience disabling barriers working together to protect our rights and supporting each other. It's about how we work, not just the word. So I hope you are happy with that. During the year we had an extraordinary general meeting where the full members met to update our rules and memorandum and articles to comply with new laws and guidance. And later on in this meeting there are 2 special resolutions which complete that process, but which we felt needed to come to the full meeting. Among that, the revision, we looked at the full member groups and how we could make it easier for small groups of people to become full member groups. We have done that, and since then we've joined up 6 new groups and the 6 independent living groups. So welcome to all of them, and well done for being here, a lot of you today. Thank you very much. We'll be starting a new member database under those rules prior to the members' meeting in the spring. We didn't want to do it for this meeting because there's so much admin going on and so much work going on at the moment. But we'll make that the point of the year at which member groups become registered. And we do need to have an active registration every year, and also obviously a way of removing inactive groups from the database. Finally, I'd just like to point out that we are involved in the setting up of the Health Watch, the new body that will provide a user voice around health services and the new clinical commissioning groups. That really is the end of my Chair's report. I would just like to say that this year has been an extraordinarily busy year. All our staff and trustees have really done a magnificent job this year, and I am very grateful to them. And I would like you to join me in voicing our appreciation to all the staff and the volunteers who responded so really well, magnificently this year to the extra demands placed on them. So could I ask you to show us? Thank you very much indeed. Now I'm going to pass over to Mark Harrison, our Chief Executive.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm going to concentrate in my CEO report today on the campaigning aspect that the Coalition's been involved in over the last year, because I think this is something that's at the heart of what we're about. Kathy just emphasised that we are part of the disability movement, and we take that very seriously. All the member groups that when you spoke, we're not member groups in isolation. 16 years ago, Norfolk took a very bold decision to join up all the member groups in the Coalition. And our strength is not just in Norfolk, but that we're part of a local, a regional, a national and an international disability movement. We're part of a national grouping of disabled people's organisations very similar to ourselves, and that national grouping is part of an international movement that is part of what's called Disabled People's International. In the UK, we're one of the founding members of the international disability movement, and we're at the forefront of creating disability rights, which came out of disabled people's anger, frustration at the discrimination that we faced back 20, 30, even 40 years ago. And it's important to recognise that the changes that have come about largely because disabled people have protested, lobbied, campaigned for those changes. And I say that because what we thought we'd won, rights that were never going to be taken away, but this coalition government in its austerity programme has unleashed a vicious attack on our rights as disabled people. They're trying to roll back the years, they're trying to take back those hard-won rights. And Jenny Morris is going to speak about some of that when she speaks to us in a while. But I just want to emphasise the role that Norfolk Coalition has played in opposing the government's austerity measures. And we've opposed them because whether you agree with austerity or not, and I think most people now recognise that the austerity programme is completely not necessary and also is having the opposite effect. In fact, it's pushing up the budget deficit. But I don't want to get into that, because what we're focusing on as a disabled people's movement is the fact that disabled people have been singled out by this government in a disproportionate and discriminatory way to bear the brunt of the cuts, to bear the brunt of the changes, because they're targeting disabled people in a way that's completely unfair. And over the last year, I think Norfolk Coalition and our member groups have played a leading role, not just locally, but regionally and nationally, in opposing what the government are doing. So we had the hardest hit demonstration in London. I think from Norfolk we took one of the largest delegations. Certainly Opening Doors were well represented, and many other of our member groups, the Access groups, the Youth Forum, were all represented in our delegation. We took a coach down, and lots of people went down also by public transport. And that was a very powerful demonstration. 10,000 disabled people and their allies, our allies, marched at Westminster, and we lobbied all our MPs. But it didn't achieve anything. The rolling back of the Health and Social Care Bill, the rolling back of the work capability assessments, trying to oppose the cuts and the changes, the scrapping of disability living allowance and its replacement by PIP, the cuts to access to work, cuts to housing benefit and the changes that are going to mean people are going to be losing their houses. None of those have been changed. This government has proceeded in spite of all the opposition. And so we carried on to November, where we organised a regional demonstration here in Norwich. And again, it was magnificent. We had over 400 people on that demonstration. Many of our member groups led that demonstration, the Youth Forum, Opening Doors, a whole range of our membership were at the front of that demonstration. But again, the government haven't listened. And I think what that says to us is that we're in a real fight, that if we're going to roll back these changes, then we have to think about different ways of doing that. What's happened since then is that the hardest hit campaign has really lost its momentum and lost its way. And disabled people up and down the country are very frustrated with that. And new groups have emerged, and very exciting groups. Disabled People Against the Cuts have become one of the leading forces challenging the government through direct action. They've led the campaign against ATOS and their work capability assessments, and they've had direct actions that we've taken part in London to oppose that. Black Flag, similarly, another organisation that has taken part. And then disabled people who can't necessarily get out of their houses or go on demonstrations have been going on the internet and developing blogs. And one of the, it's worth looking at if you haven't seen it, one of the best ones is Diary of a Benefit Scrounger, because the government keep labelling us as welfare cheats and benefit scroungers. So one of the funniest ones and the best ones is Diary of a Benefit Scrounger. And new ways of opposing the government and the austerity programme are emerging. And as part of that, we've had our own demonstrations. In March we demonstrated outside the ATOS offices against the work capability assessments, but also the fact that, and this is very bizarre, the government's main agency that's doing assessments of disabled people, whether they're capable to work or not, isn't accessible to wheelchair users. That wheelchair users can't use it, which is a complete disgrace. And they send you to the nearest offices that are accessible. And the nearest offices are Cambridge and Ipswich, bizarrely. So, but again, that protest in March was completely ineffective in the sense that it didn't create any change. ATOS are still there, they're still doing the work capability assessments in the same building. Because what's more important to them, rather than having an accessible building, it's their profits.
Yes.
And they're more interested in that than they are in making their service accessible to disabled people. So therefore, when we launched the research that Chris Edwards did with a report that showed that disabled people were disproportionately being hit by the cuts, we launched it outside the ATOS building, and we had another protest in September, which again the LGBT group and other member groups, the Access group and other member groups took part in. It was a very powerful demonstration as well, and we intend to keep up the pressure. So that's a snapshot of some of the campaigning that we've been involved in on national issues. What we know is that the government cuts in terms of their austerity programme haven't really started yet. We've also had a whole number of protests outside County Hall against the cuts in services to the local authority, and that we know that the cuts have been made, and some of our groups are already suffering from that, and certainly we as an organisation are already suffering from that, but they haven't started yet. But most of the cuts are still to come. And that we know that the settlement that the government are going to make on the local authority when they announce it in November is going to bring a whole new range of cuts along, which may see some of our member groups going out of business. It may see, it threatens even the existence of the coalition. And I don't want to be alarmist, I don't think we're going to go out of business, but we don't know. Between now and March, all of our services in Norfolk and Suffolk are being re-tendered. So we have to submit tenders to the local authority in Norfolk and Suffolk for all our existing services between now and the end of March. So as Cathy said, it's very uncertain times. And what I think is that our strength, which we've shown already, is in our membership, is in our very active coalition opposing the coalition government's programme of austerity and cuts. And I suppose all I can promise you is that I think Norfolk Coalition of Disabled People and our membership have punched above our weight in opposing the cuts so far, and we will continue to do that. So there's no rose-tinted spectacles, I'm afraid. There's no promises of anything but it's going to get worse. But all I can say is we will continue to give the leadership that's necessary to defend our rights and involve you, our membership, in leading that fight locally, regionally and nationally and internationally if necessary to make sure that we defend those rights with all our might. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, for those inspiring words. Now I'm going to ask Sarah Carter, our Finance Director, to give us an idea of the finances from 2011 to March 2012.
Hello everybody. Well, this is my third year of presenting the finances to you at the AGM, and things have moved on quite considerably. I thought I'd just share with you how things were when I first joined. We actually reported a large deficit at the time of almost 168,000. Now that was because we invested a lot of our reserves into all the big projects and independent living routes and the things that we'd signed up to do. So it was making good use of our reserves, but we then soon realised that the year ending March 2011, we had to be a little bit careful because obviously we needed to have a base of reserves in which to work forward the following year. Now this last financial year, ending March 2012, we've added money into the bank again because we knew what was coming up in the year to come was going to be difficult. We weren't too sure the amount of income that we could generate from our services with the reshaping of everything. So I would like to just acknowledge the enormous help from around 150 volunteers that do a lot of the work for us, that they've helped to achieve this massive result. We've increased our income by 83,000, reduced our costs by 31,000 in the year, which meant in actual fact there's 114,000 better picture, and a lot of that obviously is for the enormous help that we've had from many of you in the room that are either out in the field doing things for us or actually in the offices, so a big thank you for that. So I'll just share with you the famous money bags that we have every year. So we started the year with £279,450 in the kitty. We've added almost 74,000 to that So we've actually we've started this current financial year with £353,364. So it's given us a bit of a cushion to start facing these challenging times. Literally, when I met with you all at the last AGM, we just had news that the big lottery had funded our youth forum with just under £10,000 for the visibility project that Kathy mentioned earlier. Those of you that were able to go to what we call the finale event at the forum in the summer will see what a huge success the project was, and it was a major breakthrough for us to actually get some lottery funding for once. Well, since that time, those of you again that would have seen the press and heard the radio reports, we were actually awarded another £287,000 from the big lottery, which means that our youth forum work and expansion plans for the next 3 years can take place. So that was a huge result, and we've never received that amount of grant funding before in one go, so that was lovely. We have also, since that time, managed to generate a few extra pots of grant funding along the way, and at the moment we've actually got a little tally of almost £500,000. So some of that was £65,000 to help us with the hate crime project, and various other bits and bobs that we wanted, that were very important to the work we wanted to go ahead with. So our funding mix has started to change, so it's not quite so much totally on the services, although obviously our major contracts provide the main bread and butter, but we're trying to diversify that. So, what else do I need to share with you? I think that's it from me. If anyone's got any questions, please feel free, or I should be around all day. So.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I would just add that the full financial statement is in the small print, which is in your packs, but of course it's part of the larger report that goes to the Charity Commission, which is available on request if you would like. And the final thing we have to do before we get to actually the approval of the auditors is actually to approve the annual report and the details that you've just heard. So could I please have a proposer to approve the annual report for 2011 and 2012? Sean, seconder please. Sorry, you're going to have to remind me of the name. Sorry? Sandra Williamson as seconder. Alright. So could you please use your yellow voting cards to approve the annual report? Votes for? 15. Thank you. Against? Abstentions? Lovely. Okay, that satisfies the Charity Commission. That's really nice. Now we move to the approval of the auditors. Our current auditors are Lovewell Blake, the firm in Norwich. Sarah, could you tell me if you're happy with them?
Yes, previously they were known as Bannon Graham, but they merged with Lovewell Blake last year, so that was the first time we approved their presence last year. I would wholeheartedly recommend them. They just provide an excellent service. It's very painless, and they do some additional internal audit work for us as well to make sure that we're transparent on everything that we can cover. So I'd like to recommend it, and they're very good to work with. So.
Thank you. Could I have a proposal, please, that we approve Lovewell Blake as the auditors? Penny as a proposer. Could I have a seconder, please? Yeah. Was that Danny? Yeah. Thank you, Danny, at the end of the table there. Votes for, please. Thank you very much. Against? Abstentions? Thank you very much. Right, now we get to the election of the new trustees. I would like to make a formal thank you to Pat Crawford, who's stepping down from the trustee board today. As you know, Pat has been very active in the past and has been extremely valuable to us all in her wisdom and being able to support some of the discussions that have been going on around the board. But that leaves us now with 7 places to fill. I'm going to call now on Claire Abbs, who's our election officer, to read out the results of the trustee election for 2012.
Hello. Okay. What we'll do to start with is if we can just go along with each of the people standing today for election, just so they can introduce themselves so that you all know who we're talking about. We'll just do that first, just very briefly. If I could start with Sean, so if I could take the mic round to you all.
Hi everybody, I'm Sean Hobbs, Vice Chair for the last 2 years, and this year I'm standing for Chair. So those that supported me, thank you very much. Those that didn't, never mind, you will next year.
Okay, I'm standing for Chair. I'm Cathy Saunders, standing for Chair this year. Sorry, it's got to be a habit, you know. I've been Chair for the last 3 years. Sorry. What am I? I'm also Chair of the Norfolk Disabled Parents Alliance. I would just like to say at this point, I'm so hugely grateful to Sean for having supported me over the last year. We've been working very closely. So hopefully there won't be too much of a hick when Sean takes over and I start supporting him. So thank you very much.
Michael Evans, going for Treasurer.
Okay, is Matt Hodgson? There you are.
Good morning everyone, I'm Matt Hodgson, standing as election trustee. I've actually got hair now.
And Vanessa King?
I'm standing for election trustee.
We've got Mike Cox, who's standing for election as trustee as well, but I don't believe he's here unless he's snuck in the meantime. I don't think unfortunately he's here today. And then last but not least, we have Jonathan Moore.
My name is Jonathan Moore. I'm standing for election trustee here today, and it will gladly support and very grateful for it. Thank you.
Okay. We have taken a voting stick from all of the voting reps from the full member groups that are here today, and we've counted them up. And what I will do now is I will run through all of the votes that we've taken for all of the offices that we just named, and I'll confirm the elections with you. So, if I start with the office post, we've got obviously Sean Hobbs standing for election as chair. The number of votes for, 18. The number of votes against, 0. And the number of abstentions is 0. And moving on to Cathy, obviously standing as vice chair. The number of votes for are 17. The number of votes against, 0. And the number of abstentions, 0. And the last of the officers standing is Michael Ebanks, standing for treasurer. And the number of votes for is 17. Number of votes against is 0. And the number of abstentions is 1. So to confirm, all of the nominations for the chair positions are duly elected. Okay, and now if I take you through the nominations for trustee, in alphabetical order we have Matt Hodgson standing for election as trustee. Number of votes for were 18. Number of votes against 0. And number of abstentions is 0. Vanessa King also standing for election as trustee. Number of votes for 15. Number of votes against 1. Number of abstentions 2. Mike Cox also standing for election as trustee. Number of votes for is 16. Number of votes against is 0. And number of abstentions is 1. And Jonathan Moore standing again as trustee. Number of votes for 17. Number of votes against 0. And number of abstentions is 1. So I can confirm that all 4 standing for election as trustee, that is confirmed as well. And that completes the election process. What we will do as well is just put those numbers up for you on some sheets and put them around the venue as well, so that you can revisit those numbers if you would like to. And I'll now pass you back to Cathy.
Thank you very much. Welcome to new trustees. Thank you very much for volunteering to be one. It's quite a big job, especially these days. So I hope that we'll be able to support you to learn what you need to know around the trustee board very, very rapidly. Now, the last thing that we need to do is to look at the special resolutions. These change the wording of the memorandums and articles. I alluded to these before, and I'm just going to find the bit of paper that I've got them all written on. Hang on a minute. Right, now, the reason that we've brought these to you is because they don't actually change anything greatly, but these are your rules and recommendations and articles, and you do really need to be aware that if we are proposing a change, that you approve it. Now, the first special resolution is around the wording of our objects. This is the paragraph that says what we actually do, what it encompasses, everything, our purposes for being at. Now, the Charity Commission have got a very restricted range of words that you can use to describe your objects. This is all a matter of legal wording rather than the wording that we might actually choose ourselves. Some of us might remember that we had in fact tried to change the wording of this a couple of years ago to something that looked much more social model rather than defined by medical impairments. But when we actually tried doing this, the Charity Commission didn't like it at all. So we made the judgment then, should we take on the Charity Commission and try and get them to change their rules? And the answer was actually we've got much better and more important things to do. So we have modified the wording of the objects because it did not include specifically people with learning difficulties. They formerly were included within the umbrella term of mental health, and we really did feel that we needed to have that up front so everybody understood what it was about. So the change then is to include the term learning difficulties and impairments. I will now read what the full wording of the objects that we want to adopt. The company's objects are to relieve the disability of people with physical, mental, learning or sensory impairments, principally living within the county of Norfolk, and to further their independence and full participation in the community. So that's what we would like. Could I have a proposer to approve that, please? Sean and Richard Ogilvie as a seconder. Thank you very much. Could I have votes for, please? 15 for. Any votes against? Any abstentions? Right. This being a special resolution requires a 75% vote in favour. We pass the 75% when we get to 12. So I can confirm now that that has gained approval from the meeting. The second special resolution is to change the word associate in our membership rules to the word individual. We found it was very difficult sometimes to explain to people who wanted to join the organisation the difference between associate and affiliate. So we're just going to simplify the fact that an associate is in fact an individual and not a group. Within that, we want to put forward a membership form which includes all individuals. And when people make an application to the organisation as an individual, they'll be asked to declare whether they consider themselves to be a person who's faced disabling barriers. And it's at that point on our database that we'll know how many people who face disabling barriers that we've actually got on our database, and how many, if you like, non-disabled people on our database. That will leave the affiliate group as being groups of affiliate bodies rather than both bodies and individuals. I hope I've explained that. Has anybody got any queries about that before I read it out again? Clearly, this will be obviously within the printed forms when we actually get to doing them. So, the change then is in 4B. Upon admission to membership, members shall be allowed one of the following categories, subject to the absolute discretion of the Board of Trustees, which is exactly what it says at the moment. And then A is there's no change, that refers to the full member groups. Sorry? Yes?
Could you repeat that again? Because things go through me.
Okay. The memorandum and articles as they stand at the moment use the word associate, and we also have an affiliate group. The difficulty is that people sometimes confuse associate with affiliate. And we think it would be a lot easier if we use the word individual rather than associate, so that individuals will know that they are individuals, and they will declare on the form whether they're a person who considers themselves to be experiencing disabling barriers. And all the individual members will be within that group, but separated out on our database, which will leave the affiliate category as simply groups of people or bodies that are not led by disabled people. So we've got the three main categories of membership: the full members, who are groups led by disabled people; individuals, who are all individuals, that we can separate out as a subgroup whether they are facing disabling barriers or not; and then the affiliate group, which is groups led by non-disabled people. Is that clear? Yes? Right, you're all happy with that? Right, was that okay? Non-disabled people will come within the individual members, but they will be asked whether they consider themselves to be disabled or not, and they will be distinguished then on our database. Okay? Everybody happy? It's quite an important thing to everybody to take on board. Fine. So, the wording then within what was the associate members now reads, individual members shall be individual people who support the objects of the company. Each individual member shall state if they consider themselves to be a person with personal experience of disabling barriers. Individual members shall not have a vote or be counted for the purposes of the quorums or any other part of these memorandum and articles of association unless expressly mentioned. And then in the following paragraph, we've deleted that issue about whether they are organisations that are led by non-disabled people or individuals who are non-disabled. All right? Could I have a proposer for those changes, please? Proposed Sean, seconder, was that Dan? I heard from Dan there. Right, could I have votes for the change to this paragraph 4, please? Sorry, 15-4, thank you very much. That's 15 votes for. Any votes against? Any abstentions? Well, again, this being a special resolution requires 12 votes for to be passed, so I'm very pleased to say that that now has been passed. So that concludes now the business part of the AGM.